Okay, let's look at protists. Now, protists belong to basically the kingdom Protista. And it's an organism that's not classified as a plant, it's not classified as an animal, it isn't classified as a fungus, it is not a bacteria, it is a virus, it's somewhere else. Okay, so these are eukaryotes. Most of them are unicellular, one-celled. Some are multicellular. But they do have, they do have a nucleus. They do have organelles. They just, they're not animal cells. They don't have, chloroplast and chlorophyll. They don't look as fungus. They're just another group that's all by its little self. So there are several phylum in this. It is a very diverse group. And as I mentioned, most are unicellular. Some form colonies and or are multicellular without special tissues. So the main thing is protists are primarily classified how they get their food, how they get their nutrition. You have animal-like protists, which are heterotrophs. They eat other organisms. We call these protozoas. You have plant-like protists. They obviously are autotrophs. They have the chloroplasts and they make their own food through photosynthesis. And then you have fungus-like protists that are decomposers and then get their nutrition from that. So all protozoans derive their nutrients from other organisms, either by ingesting them whole or consuming their remains and waste products. And unlike the plants and the fungi, a lot of the algae, protozoans do not have a rigid cell wall, but they usually have a very elastic structure of membranes that allows them to move around. These guys all reproduce asexually by either binary fission or what we call multiple fission, but most of them is by binary fission. And they are an important food source for a lot of your little tiny invertebrates. They have a huge ecological role in the transfer of bacteria and algae to success, to the different levels. So they're going to provide a lot of food sources for these little guys. Now, we classify them into 4 major groups. We're kind of going to go through them and I'm going to show you what they are, and then I'm going to go through some of the diseases they cause. This is health for you guys, healthcare professional wannabes, right? Or sometimes you are already and just want to go up in the field. First of all, flagellates. Obviously, they have flagella. They are unicellular. There are about 2,000 species. Some of them are free-living, like some green algae. Some are parasitic, such as trichomonas, which is a very common sexually transmitted disease in humans. Some live singly, such as Euglena. If you take a biology lab, a lot of biology labs keep Euglena because it is very easy to work with, okay? But they move about with the help of one or more flagella, okay? All right, so let's look at these pathogenic flagellates. The first one, Trypanosoma gambizians. Most of the time it's called Trypanosoma gambizians. This causes African sleeping sickness. And you can see the gambizians for Gambian. It was first found in Gambia in Africa. It is transmitted by the tsetse fly. And it causes fever. You can see it aches, extreme fatigue. But what it does is, as it progresses, it gets sleeping sickness. There is a progressive confusion, neurologic problems that occur after it has invaded the central nervous system It's called sleeping sickness because these guys just basically sleep, and it can easily kill the patient. Okay, um, just FYI. This is what it looks like. This is one of the ways that you can. When we get to your test, there are only 2 blood smears that will be on the test. That may be on the test because I'm only giving you 2 organisms that infect blood. And one is trypanosoma, and the other one is plasmodium, which causes malaria. So FYI. And they do look different. Okay, so and I'll show you the difference, and I'll tell you the difference. I'll give you the key for recognizing it on your little lab practical, and because the pictures won't be on the lecture exam, but I will have them on the lab practical. There's your little flagella. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, notice it is not inside the cell. It is not inside the blood cell. This is a blood smear, but these little flagellates are not in the red blood cell. Plasmodium, which causes malaria, starts its life cycle inside the red blood cell. So that's how you tell them apart, right there. Okay? But again, it causes African sleeping sickness, and you get, common symptoms of irritability, fatigue to where these people are sleeping all the time, and that's why they call it sleeping sickness. Another flagellate is Trichomonas vaginalis. It is among the most common sexually transmitted infections in humans. Risk factors you can see: it causes in women a foul-smelling discharge, itching, painful urination. Problem is typically if men have it, they typically have no symptoms. And trichomonas can be a complication and a risk of premature delivery in pregnant women. So they will look for this. You need to treat both partners, taking certain antibiotics that they'll give you, but you need to treat both or you just keep reinfecting yourself. All right. This is trichomonas, and you can see the lovely little flagella there. Okay. We can, if the infection is bad enough, I can tell you, we can pick it up on a urine specimen. We can see it because we can see the little organism with the little flagella moving. But it can be picked up fairly easily. Another one, Giardia lamblia, transmitted through food and water, primarily water that's been contaminated by human or animal feces. It's found in a lot of streams and lakes, but also in public water, sometimes wells and stuff like that. You can see about 7% of the population is a health carrier. A lot of the wild animals are carriers. I will tell you that if you go hiking anywhere, please don't drink out of the streams, especially in the Midwest and areas, but 9 times out of 10, you might get Giardia. Okay. And it just causes, really nasty diarrhea. But I'm one of these people when I will not drink from a stream just because of this. I mean, I went to Iceland, and one of their things is, we have clean water and we don't have any Giardia in our water and you can drink it. And everybody's like drinking. I'm like, no way. Not me. But yeah, when you go out hiking and you're out in the lovely fresh air in the mountains and stuff like that, and you run across the stream, please don't drink the water without filtering it or boiling it or something. In fact, just bring your own bottled water, okay? If you run out of water and got to drink it, at least filter it through a couple layers of your clothing. So you might not get this, okay? The organism multiplies in the intestinal tract, can cause malnutrition because of impaired absorption of vitamin B12 and your fats. And this can eventually lead to anemia. But mainly what you get is this flatulence, yeah, you're going to pass a lot of gas. Abdominal distension, this very foul-smelling, bulky stool is not something you really want to go for. The cute little thing is these guys, to me, look like little kites with faces on them. They're pretty easy to recognize because of this. They're really cute looking for me. So, I don't know what you guys think, but when I see them, I think they're kind of cute. All right, so that's your flagellates. You have 3 that I want you to know. Then you have your ciliates. They have cilia, which are little hairs. And you can see it means, I don't know how they come up with this, eyelid bears, but whatever. The little cilia resemble eyelashes, and they are the main structure for the movement of these guys. They move their cilia, unlike a flagellate, which, is like a little tail. They are all unicellular. There's a lot of variation in them. Paramecium, which is one that is studied a lot in high school biology and college biology labs because it's so easy to get a hold of. That's one that we like to use a lot of times. It's distributed all over the entire surface of the cell. So here's your little paramecium. It kind of looks like a rug. To me, it looks just like a fringe rug. What can I say? Now, we do have some pathogenic ciliates. Ballontidium coli. It most likely occurs in people with malnutrition due to low stomach acids because of the stomach acid will kill ballontidium. Or if you have a compromised immune system. In the acute disease, it can cause an explosive diarrhea that can happen every 20 minutes. It's not a fun thing. You can get perforation of the colon, and it can occur in acute infections, and it can lead to life-threatening situations. If you're pooping out every 20 minutes, you are basically really dehydrating. Mostly found in Southeast Asia and Western Pacific Islands and rural South America. So again, remember what I said about if you're going to move out, if you're going to look outside the country, please look into where you're traveling to so you can be aware of what you might be facing. This is what it looks like, and you can see those lovely little cilia, and you can see it's a cyst, and you swallow it. Yeah. Okay. It's found on it a lot of times. It's acquired because you're ingesting this guy because of contaminated food or contaminated water. You have to worry about when people are watering fields and stuff. There are all kinds of things you can get from this, but it's primarily found in those areas. All right, so that's really the only ones on there. Your Sarcodina are amoebas. They don't have a definite shape. They're very flexible. They move by what's called pseudopods or false feet. That's what it literally translates to. And they kind of push that out and it pulls them along. Okay. The feet are not permanent. They just, a part of the organism extends and attaches and that pulls the rest of it forward. One of the guys I do want to mention, or a couple of them, is that are pathogenic. One is Entamoeba histolytica. About a small percentage of us in the United States are asymptomatic carriers, and it can cause liver abscesses. Entamoeba histolytica causes amoebic dysentery. And if you don't know what dysentery means, it is bloody diarrhea. So this is a guy that if you get a hold of it and get in it, you're going to get some nice bloody diarrhea, and it's not going to be fun. Okay? And I'll show you what it looks like. Naegleria, this guy is dangerous. Okay? And Cantha amoeba. These live in fresh water, and they can cause amoebic meningitis. You can die from these guys. Several people have. And what you have to be careful is when you're in an area and you jump into a warm freshwater lake or pond, sometimes these guys may be in there. They're rare. But when they get them, what happens is you jump in and the water gets up your nose and penetrates into the cribriform plate in the base of I can't talk today, base of the brain. And within 4 or 5 days, you can be dead. Okay? It will infect your brain. And yeah, there have been plenty of cases of malaria, particularly out in the Southwest, people jumping into the lakes out there. So if you're going out there again, be careful. But these guys can just kill the brain real quick. All right, there's your Entamoeba histolytica, the little guy right there. I have gotten stool specimens where I've had to look for Entamoeba histolytica and found it, so it is there. This is Naegleria fowleri, and you can see the little guy, and this is some tissue that it's in. Unfortunately, this is from a no longer living person. So just be aware. If you're going to jump into lakes and you don't know where they are, first of all, it's not a good idea to do it unless you're sure. But, try not to get so much, close your nose and try not to drive the water up into your nose. Yeah. I think microbiologists are a little more anal retentive about doing things that most normal people would never even think about. Okay. Sporozoa. These guys produce spores at a certain stage in their life cycle. They are parasites of animals. They usually pass from one host to another in the spore stage. These spores are light and are easily scattered by the wind and the water and everything like that. So these guys are among the most widely distributed parasites, but only a few of them are harmful to us. But yeah, when they can be tough. Okay. So I have to mention Plasmodium. And I've already talked about this. This causes malaria. It is a mosquito-borne infectious disease. It is transmitted to humans by the bite of the Anopheles mosquito. And you get these severe flu-like symptoms. It is preventable. It is curable with early medical and intervention. If you're going to travel, you need to know if malaria is in the area. If it's endemic. Again, it's carried by mosquitoes. So, those areas where it is endemic, there are malarial vaccines that you can take. The military is vaccinated against it. But malaria, this is what killed thousands of people, building the Panama Canal. Until we got a lot of the mosquitoes out in North Carolina, you could catch malaria in North Carolina. Trust me, I know my grandfather had malaria and he never left North Carolina. So any place you've got mosquitoes and get bitten, you need to kind of worry about it. But it's mainly in these areas where malaria is endemic. So like in Africa, in India. That sort of thing. So you have to look for this. Haiti is another one. I when I was working in the hospital down in Florida, I can tell you I diagnosed several cases of that. We got our specimens in, and yeah, there's Plasmodium in the blood sample. And some of them came from Africa, some of them came from India, some of them came from Haiti, but just FYI, especially since, again, with this global warming, mosquitoes can increase and you can have these issues. So first of all, it is life-threatening. It infects more than, look at that, 300 million people each year, causing about 4 million deaths. It is the #1 infectious disease worldwide. All right, there are actually 5 types, but there are 4 main types of malaria that are caused by Plasmodium. The Plasmodium falciparum is the most severe and causes almost all the fatalities, and it is usually found in Africa. I won't tell you that much. There is Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium I can't even remember all. I'll get there. Malaria and but it's what they do is infect your red blood cells. And so you get bitten by this Anopheles mosquito. That parasite infects your red blood cells. It infects all of the erythrocytes, and once infected, the RBCs tend to stick together and they obstruct the small capillaries throughout the body. And this can lead to severe complications in your major organs. There is a complication of what are called black water fever. And basically what you do is start passing hemolyzed blood through the kidneys. As I mentioned, it's the bite of the female Anopheles mosquito. She has infectious porocytes in her salivary glands. And basically what happens is you get a cycle of fevers. This is really the diagnostic hallmark of malaria, that you get every 48 hours, you get a fever, a high fever, and chills, and you're shaking, and then you get better, and then 2 days later, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. This is the hallmark of this. And now with falciparum, it's about every 48 hours. For some of the others, vivax and malaria is not quite that, okay? And again, the symptoms typically appear 10 to 15 days after being bitten, and they can manifest as easy as 7 or 7 days, or they can remain dormant, okay? And so it's fevers, chills, nausea, vomiting. If left untreated, because of these clots, it can escalate to an emergency. And you can have convulsions, difficulty breathing, severe anemia, kidney failure, jaundice, and so on. So malaria is nothing to play around with. And of the 5 species, these are the most common is falciparum, which is the deadliest. It's usually found in sub-Saharan Africa. Plasmodium vivax, parts of Asia, Latin America, Haiti, that sort of thing. So basically this is dominant outside the sub-Saharan Africa. It's not as bad, but it still causes major problems. So let's take a look at this. This is what it looks like inside the red blood cell. Again, this is the second one where the picture is inside in the red blood cells in the blood. But notice these guys, they do move out as they mature and get out in the plasma, but they start in the red blood cell. And you can see this little, kind of like happy face, 2 little dots. We call the dots Schuffer's dots. And this is the ring form of that. It looks like a little diamond ring, and it gets a little happy face, and it grows bigger and bigger and ends up going outside the red blood cell. But this is what we look for when we're asked to look for Plasmodium in the blood. Okay. And I will tell you, I've been asked to count these and give a percentage of cells infected, and that can be used to track treatment. You can get that initial count, and then it can be treated, and you do a secondary account afterwards, and like, is this working or not? Okay. All right, another one is Toxoplasma. It is found in domestic cats and humans, often infected by cysts in cat feces. Animals such as pigs and cattle and sheep can also be infected, and sometimes we can get it from eating undercooked meats. Usually we don't have a problem. However, there are two situations with Toxoplasma which are bad. First of all, during pregnancy, it can lead to severe fetal damage involving the brain, the viscera, and the muscles. This is why when you're pregnant, please stay away from your cat if you can, especially the feces of the cat. Okay? And people that have HIV or have immunodeficiencies, they can also get Toxoplasma. Again, most often from cat feces. This is what it looks like. All right. Now, sporozoas. We're getting there. We're almost there. Cryptosporidium. This has only been known since the late 1970s. This organism can cause life-threatening diarrhea in people with HIV, with AIDS. People with normal immune systems may get a mild diarrhea. We are increasingly seeing this as a contaminant in city water systems. Yeah, great to know. And that's because the cyst of this organism is resistant to chlorination, and some cities have started filtering water to get rid of this problem. All right. I haven't seen any reports of it in our water, but it's just FYI. So, yeah. The main thing is that if you have AIDS, it can be a real problem. Okay. And this is what it looks like. You can see those little spores. The other one I want to mention is Cyclospora. You can become infected with this by consuming food or water contaminated with the parasite. People living in traveling countries where this is endemic may be at an increased risk. Or you may get foods that have been irrigated with contaminated food or water. With water, sorry. I've seen a couple of cases when I was working in the hospital, that we were asked to examine for this because strawberries coming in from Mexico, the water was contaminated, and people were eating their strawberries without thoroughly washing and getting them, because you don't really want to wash strawberries. And we did run into a few people that came down with this, and we were asked to look for it. So there's the little cyst, and you can see that. All right, so common protozoal infections, you can take a look at these. I'm not going to touch on them, but it kind of gives you the signs and the symptoms and how it's transmitted. But look at that. Stool O&P. This is being paid. All right. Stool for ova and parasites. So if you work in the healthcare profession and you're a nurse on the floor, somebody's got diarrhea, they're going to ask you to collect, the specimen, and you send it down to the lab for an O&P. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the eggs of the organism or the full parasite or whatever it may be. So this is one of these things we frequently look at. We can do antibodies to it or ELISA. We'll talk about ELISA, but basically the first is generally just looking for it in the stool specimen, which is just lovely to do. FYI. Then our plant-like protists, there's our Euglena, as we talked about. Nothing major with this guy, but they do exist, and they're used frequently in the lab. We also have unicellular algae. These guys recycle sewage and waste materials, and they are phytoplanktons. They provide nourishment. for a lot of other organisms. Okay, a lot of other organisms. Then you can get algal blooms. These are harmful when they're overgrown. They do kill the fish. That we can get a particular one called red tide, which can really cause you problems. It'll cause fish kills, but if you are swimming or eating the fish from a red tide, you can get very ill. I mean, I saw this a lot when I lived in Florida because we have that nice warm Gulf waters. Yeah, but we even got red tide in the estuaries on the eastern coast with the Atlantic. So anytime you can get an algal bloom, it can cause illness. It can cause the fish to die, and you do not want to get near this stuff because it can make you very ill. I just want to look at algae, just make you aware. We do classify them according to color, so we have red and green and brown algae. And the brown algae is the kelp that you usually see with the kelp beds and that kind of stuff. Good uses for algae. We talked about all the diseases. Let's talk about some good uses. Algae is a good food source for life in the oceans. It produces much of the Earth's oxygen through photosynthesis. And we do use it to make sushi and ice cream and salad dressings and plastics and paint and agar. So your agar that we use in a microbiology lab, to grow, that is coming from seaweed, from algae, okay? So our agar, we use an extract of that. We have fungus like protists, and it really doesn't cause us too much problems, but it is a plant problem, okay? You have slime molds and water molds. When they talk about slime molds, they're really usually talking about these amoeba-like organisms that eat bacteria and decay, decaying organic matter. These guys can, this particular group of slime molds, there are some that are obligate parasites, and they can be significant problems in agricultural pathogens, and they can just wipe out crops. FYI. Water molds, these are protists that absorb the food from the surrounding water. They can invade the body of another organism to feed. They play a very important role in decomposing and recycling decaying matter. There are other parasitic species that have caused a lot of human suffering and destruction of fish and crops. And I couldn't get out of this without talking about Phytophthora. Okay? This Phytophthora is what caused the Great Potato Famine in Ireland in the 1800s. It led to the mass starvation of Irish people, and why, a lot of people migrated over. And this is one of those molds that one day you may see a little bit in the field, and you go in there the next morning, and the whole field is gone, done. And so basically what it was is when the Irish people started cultivating potatoes, unfortunately, they just kept using the same potato and the same potato and the same potato. And so you basically had one species in Ireland. And then when Phytophthora came in and ruined it, these people had nothing to eat, and they starved to death. There are some labs, just FYI, that the USDA has. I will tell you, I've seen one down in Florida where they keep a few specimens of Phytophthora. Just keep it to show people, invited in, and you can look and see what it is. And let me tell you, it is one nasty mold. I have seen it, and you don't ever want it to get out to a crop. So I've given you some of the good things, the bad things, the diseases, and hopefully you now have an appreciation for some of these protists. They're little guys, but they can make you really sick. All right. So I'll take you through the lab, but you're going to need to be able to recognize some of these guys by looking at them for your lab practical.